Here we go. All right, back for another Sabbath, right? Shabbat Shalom. And we give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh when we do so in the name of Yahweh Shai, that's the Heavenly Father, and our Savior, his Son, right? Now, um, yesterday, right? Yesterday was the destruction of Nicolor, I mess up the name, but he was an Edomite, right? And his destruction, right? And today is Purim, right? So we got these two holy days, right? Which is in our history and our tradition in Israel, right? Now, these holy days are not what you would call mandatory. You don't have to keep them. They're not one of the 7 high holy days, but it's in our culture and it's in our tradition. And we're going to read about it today, right? So we're going to read about both, right? So first, I would like to go to Judges 5 and 11. Let me get that first. Judges chapter 5, verse 11. And it reads, and they that are delivered from the noise of the archers in the place of drawn water, there they shall rehearse the righteous acts of the Lord Yahweh, even the righteous acts towards the inhabitants of the villages in Israel. Then shall the people of the Lord go down to the gates. But the point I wanted to make is rehearsing the righteous acts of the Lord. That's what we're doing. We're rehearsing the righteous acts, right? That's our culture, that's our tradition, and we keeping it, right? So let's start off with the destruction of Nicola, right? Let's go to First Maccabees chapter 7, start at the top. And forgive me ahead of time for a lot of names of these people, especially the Edomites, right? I didn't perfect the names. This First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 1. And it happened after Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of his land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, the king of Persia and the Medes, and that he resigned in his stead the first over Greece. So what it just said was, all right, after we came out of our Babylonian slavery, that was 7 years. We went into the merger right directly out of it. We went into the Persian and Mede slavery because the Persian and Medes had destroyed Babylon. Well, the same thing happened with the Greeks, right? So these Greeks, it's the first time us being in slavery with the so-called white man, right? So you had Darius, the king of Persian and Medes, right? You had Darius, king, what was that other king of Persia? But whatever, they were the kings of Persia. The Greeks actually destroyed them, and we went into, they took their spoils of war, and we went directly into another slavery. So we went directly from the Babylonians to the Persian and Medes, and directly from the Persian and Medes into the Greeks. And this is the time we went into the Greeks, right? So Philip the Macedonian destroyed Darius, and we went into slavery under the Greeks. Verse 2. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went throughout to the ends of the earth, because we know Alexander the Great and all the Greeks, they conquered what was known as the known world, right? So what everybody knew as the world back then, they conquered it, right? The Greek Empire, Alexander the Greek, right? Verse 3, and went throughout the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, inasmuch as the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries to them, right? So they took over all these countries with all these different people. And after these things, he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Then Alexander the Greek fell sick and he was going to die, right? Wherefore he called his servants and such that was at honorable and had been brought up from his youth. 1 second. I can't scroll. I'm thinking I can scroll the screen for you. 1 second, y'all. Yeah, just making sure something. What verse I'm at? Verse 6. Wherefore he called his servants such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted the kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander the Greek, he called his partners, his white Edomite partners, and he finna divide his kingdom up. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bear rule everyone in his place. So they took over in his place. And after his death, they put all crowns upon themselves. So did the sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied on the earth. So when the Edomites took over, evils increased. And there came out of them wicked root of Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, Antiochus the king, who had been hostage in Rome and had reigned 137 years of the kingdom of the Greeks. I wanted to get that out the way. Scroll down, jump down to verse let's just read it. Let's just read it all, because this whole chapter is the point. Go back up. Boom. So surname in those days, verse 12. So the device boom. Verse, wicked man who persuaded many things, let us go make a covenant with the heathens that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So the wicked Israelites joined themselves into Esau. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinance of the heathens. So they amalgamated themselves to the the Edomite culture, right? The Greek culture, whereupon they built places to exercise in Jerusalem according to the custom of the heathens. That's a gymnasium. You should look up that. And they made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant and joined themselves to the heathens, and they were sold into mischief. And when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, right? That he might have dominion over two realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude and chariots and elephants and horsemen and great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. So Antiochus Epiphanes, right? He's known as being a wicked Edomite king, right? He took his army, went and invaded Egypt, right? Verse 19, thus they got the strong cities of the land of Egypt and took the spoils. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt. Make 20 the top verse. Antiochus had smitten Egypt. He returned in the 143rd year and went against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude. So when Antiochus got back from invading Egypt, he turned his sights on Israel. And they entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar and the candlesticks of light and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the showbread and the pouring of vessels and the vials, and the censers of gold and the veil and the crown and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he poured off. So they destroyed and desecrated our temple, right? And he took also silver and gold and the precious. Okay, I was at verse 23. And he took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels, and also took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went to his own land and made a great massacre, having made a great massacre and spoken proudly. So boom, he go to the temple, right? He destroyed the temple, then he go back to his land. Therefore, there was great mourning in Israel in every place where they were. So the princes and the elders mourned, and the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women were changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation. Lamentation is like mourning. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness, and the land was also moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute to the cities of Judah, who came to Jerusalem with a great multitude. So now after 2 years, he done killed some Israel, killed a couple of Israelites, done destroyed the city, right? 2 years done passed. He come back, but he come back with an army with him, right? So verse 29 again. After 2 years fully expired, the king sent the chief collector of tributes to the city of Judah. So he sent the collector of tributes, meaning a tax, because he coming to collect some money, who came to Jerusalem with a great multitude, and make peaceable words unto them. And ain't this how Esau operates? He make peaceable words. So he comes speaking of smooth words, right? And make peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given them credence, he fell suddenly upon the city and smote a very sore, and destroyed much people in Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it afire and pulled down the houses and the walls on every side. So he came speaking peace, but after he got what he wanted, he killed people and destroyed the city and burnt it down. Verse 32. But the women and the children took captives and possessed the cattle, and then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. Right, so this is them taking over the temple, taking over the city. Right, verse 34. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. So they built us. They made it theirs. They fortified it. They made it their stronghold. Verse 35. They stored it also with armor and with victuals, and then they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem. They laid them up there, so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in and wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, inasmuch as the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. So they doing so much evil, and they done took over the city. Israelites just leaving, they fleeing, right? And they killing people, right? It's a boom, boom, boom. Inasmuch as the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers. This is Jerusalem, and became strange to those who were born in her, and her own children left her. Her sanctuary was laid waste in the wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning. Her Sabbaths into a reproach, and honor into contempt. The water, as had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, the king Antiochus wrote his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and that everyone should leave leave his law. So all the heathens agreed according to the commandments of the king. Yea, many of the Israelites consented. Huh? I sound low? Okay. Is that better? I'm gonna try to speak louder. I'm gonna do this on my new phone next week. It said, it's verse 42. And everyone should leave his law, and all the heathens agreed according to the commandment of the king. Let me start at 40 again. Also had been a glory, 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to the whole kingdom that all should be one people, right? So this is the America, so to speak, or why you would get a Greek in the New Testament. Jew nor Greeks, where here go them being Greeks, right? Verse 41, one more time. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to the whole kingdom that they all should be one people, and everyone should leave his law, so that all the heathens agreed according to the commandments of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed idols and profaned the Sabbath. For the king has sent letters by messengers into Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that should follow the strange law of the land, and forbid it burnt offerings. Now you can't make burnt offerings, right? And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices, drink offerings in the temple, that they should profane the Sabbath day of festivals, and pollute the sanctuary and holy people. set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. Yeah, the water. That they should also leave the children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profane, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. So these the Israelites becoming Greeks. And whosoever would not according to the commandment of the king said he should die. In the same self manner wrote he to the whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, and commanded the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered to them, to wit, everyone forsook the law, and they committed evils in the land, and drove Israelites to secret places, even wherever they could flee of Succor. Now 15, now the 15th day of the month, now the 15th day of the month, Celius, in the 140th and fourth year, they set up an abomination of desolation upon the altar and builded altars throughout the city of Judah, even on every side, and burnt incense at the door of the house and in the streets. And when they had rent in one piece the book of the law, which they found, they burnt them with fire. So now they burnt the Bible, right? Our scrolls. And whosoever was found with any book in the testament or any committed to the law, the king commanded them that they should be put to death. They should put him to death. This did they by the authority of the. This they did by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the outer altar, which was upon the altar of God. At which time the water. At which time to the commandment that they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hang. Oh, give me 1 second. Salakia. All right. Salakia. I know I was tripping. Can I get First Maccabees chapter 7? Let's start at the top. Salakia. In the 140th year, Demarius, the son of Silius, departed from Rome and came up with a few men to the city of the sea coast, and reigned there. And he entered into the palace of his ancestors. So it was if his forces had taken Antiochus and Lysias to bring them to him. Wherefore, when he knew it, he said, "Let me not see their faces." So his host slew them. And when Demarius was set upon the throne of his kingdom, there came to him all wicked and ungodly men of Israel, having alchemists. Alchemist just Israelite at this point, who was Destroyus to be a high priest for their captain. And they accused the people to the king, saying, Judas Maccabees, Judas and his brethren have slain all thy friends and driven us out of our land, right? So they went to the king and they complained about Judas and them, said they killed some people, right? These wicked Israelites that's going, we finna Salakia for that thing. I thought I was reading chapter 7. But make a long story short, let's keep going. Now, therefore, send some men whom thou trustest, and let him go and see what havoc he have made among us and in the king's land, and let him punish them with all that aid him. Then the king chose Bacchias, a friend of the king, who ruled beyond the flood, and was a great king, a great man in the kingdom, and a faithful to the king. And him he sent with the wicked alchemist, whom he had made high priest, and commanded that he should take vengeance on the children of Israel. So now the king done got Bacchias, right? And matched them with alchemists, and they finna try to go get Judas Maccabees, right? Judas Maccabees is the one that rededicated the temple. right? Verse 10, and they departed and came with a great power to the land of Judea, where they sent messengers to Judas and his brethren with peaceable words deceitfully. That's why I thought I was in the right chapter, that peaceable words. So they came to Judas Maccabees, right? And they got some people with them, and they finna try to speak deceitfully and peacefully, but they got war in their heart, right? But they gave, scroll back up to 10. Let me read 10 one more time. I'll say, so they depart, okay, the peaceable words deceitfully, verse 11. And they gave no heed to their words, for they saw that they were come with a great power. So now the alchemists and Bacchius, they came with a great power. So they coming with a mini little army with them. They coming with their people with them, right? So now you got alchemists and you got Bacchius, right? And they got their little army, and they coming to Judas Maccabees, right? But they finna act like they cool, but they got war in their heart. Verse 12. Then did there assemble unto alchemists and Bacchius a company of scribes to require justice. Now, not only do they got an army with them, they got scribes to write for them, right? Now, the Assyrians were the first among the children of Israel that saw peace with them. The Assyrians is like if you look it up, it's like Israelites that did a lot of fasting and praying or whatever. Those are the Assyrians. Now the Assyrians were the first among the children of Israel that saw peace with them. For said they, one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron is come with his army, and he will not do us no wrong. So they naive. They believe in the law. So they like, hey, alchemist is a high priest. Surely him and his men ain't gonna do us wrong, right? So that's what the Assyrians said. Verse 15. So we spake with them peaceably and swear unto them, saying, we will procure the harm. We will procure the harm neither of you nor your friends. For alchemists like, we ain't gonna hurt nobody. Wherein they believed them. So the Assyrians believed them. Howbeit, he took of them 70 men and slew them in one day, according to the words which he wrote. So 70 is 20. So he killed 60 men in one day. So this Israelite and this little crew and this little army, they killed 60 Israelites, these Assyrians, in one day. Verse 16. And the flesh of thy saints have they cast out, and their blood have they shed around about Jerusalem, and there was none to bury them. So these brothers, the fowls of the air, the birds, and because that's why we get buried the day we die, because the fowls of the earth. So nobody was there to bury them. Verse 18. Wherefore the fear and dread of them fell upon all the people, who said, there is neither truth nor righteousness in them, for they have broken the covenant and the oath that they made. So they saying, hey, don't trust these people, right? Saying, don't trust these people, right? They broke the covenant that they made. After this, removed Bacchius from Jerusalem and pitched his tent in Bethesda, where he sent and took many of the men that had forsaken him, and certain of the people also. And when he had slain them, he cast them to a great pit. So he threw them in a mass grave. Then committed he the country of alchemists. Then committed he the country of alchemists and left, Shalom, sis, and left Shabbat Shalom, and left him with a power to aid him. So Bronchies went to the king. Alchemists contended for the high priesthood, and unto him restored all such as troubled the people, who after they had gotten the land of Judah into their power, did much hurt to Israel. So now you got alchemists, you got all the people scared, right? Now they done got the land in their power, right? What verse now? Now when Judah saw that all the mischief that alchemists and his company had done among the Israelites, because keep in mind, they was coming for Judas in the first place, right? Now when Judas came for saw the mischief that alchemists and his company have done among the Israelites, even above the heathens, right? He went out into all the coast of Judea round about and took vengeance of them that had revolted from him, so that they dressed no more go forth into the country. So Judah Maccabees and his people went around and they like, they declare war, right? On the other side, when Alchemist saw that Judah and his company had gotten the upper hand and knew that he was not able to abide their force, by their force, he went again to the king and said all the worst of them that he could. Now, Alchemist, this wicked Israelite, he's scary. So he go to the heathen king. Once he knew that Judah's name was on his tail, right? He go to the king like, hey, king, start lying on him, telling all manner of mischief on him, because he trying to get help, right? He going to the heathen king for help. Verse 26. And the king sent Nicanor, right? Nicanor, right? One of his most honorable princes. Now, Nicanor is a Edomite, right? So you got these wicked Israelites that's working with Israel. Hold on. You got these wicked Israelites working with Edomites against Israelites, right? So that's what's happening. Then the king sent Nicanor, one of his most honorable princes, a man that bare deadly hate unto Israel, with commandments to destroy the people. Now, Nicanor hated Israelites, right? So he sent him, right? Alchemist came complaining. So he like, I'm going to send Nicanor, right? So Nicanor came to Jerusalem with a great force. Now, Nicanor got his army with him, with a great force, and sent unto Judas and his brethren deceitfully and with friendly words, saying, now here come Esau talking peaceably again. Let there be no more battle between me and you. I will come with a few men that I may see you in peace. And he came therefore to Judas, and they saluted one another peaceably. Howbeit the enemy were prepared to take away Judas by violence. So they met each other, but Judas peeped that they already on it. Verse 30, which thing after it was known to Judas, to wit, that he came to him with deceit, he was so afraid of him and would see his face no more. So Judas didn't want to see him no more, right? Verse 31, and Nicanor also, when he saw, Shabbat Shalom, Nicanor also, when he saw that his counsel was discovered, he went out to fight against Judas beside that city, right? Verse 32, where there were slain of Nicanor's side about 5,000 men, and the rest fled the city into the city of David. So boom, Judas and Nicanor and them have a battle. 5,000 Nicanor men or the Edomite side get killed, and the rest they ain't even soldiers no more. They drop their swords and flee, right? Verse 33, and after this went Nicanor up to Mount Zion. So Nicanor, after he got beat up in a battle, he go to the temple. And there came out the sanctuary certain of the priests and certain of the elders of the people to salute them peaceably and to shew him the burnt sacrifices that was offered unto the king. Now, according to Numbers, if a heathen come near the sanctuary, well, because the only people that's supposed to set it up and take it down is the Levites. If a heathen come, they supposed to be put to death. Well, in this case, they done let the heathen in the temple, let them start seeing all the burnt sacrifices, letting them in the Holy of Holies. Let's see what Nicanor did. Keep in mind, this Edomite hate Israelites. Verse 34, but he mocked them and laughed at them and abused them shamefully and spake proudly. He mocked these Israelites in their temple, right? And swear in his wrath, saying, unless Judas and his host be now delivered to my hands, if ever I come again to safety, I will burn up this house. And with that, he went out in a great rage, right? And when the priest entered in, so the priest, the priest finna get like a light bulb finna go off. They finna come back to their senses, right? Verse 36, and when the priest entered in and stood before the altar in the temple, weeping, saying, thou, O Lord, Yahweh, didst choose this house to be called by thy name and to be a house of prayer and petition for thy people. Be avenged. It says, be avenged of this man and his host and let him fall by the sword. Now you got the Israelites that just got mocked in the temple. Now they praying for Nicanor to get killed. They praying to God to kill him. Be avenged of this man and his host, and let him fall by the sword. remember their blasphemies and suffer them not to continue any longer. So now the priests in the temple they like, hey man, kill that dude, Yahweh. So Nicanor went out of Jerusalem and pitched his tent in Barathon, where a host of out of Syria met him. So this the Greek captivity. If you look in Syria right now, it's white people there. This is how they got there, through the Greek taking over everything. So the men out of Syria came and met him. This is little army. But Judas pitched in a dais with 3,000 men, and there he prayed, saying, "O Lord, when they that were sent from the king of Assyria, Syrians blasphemed, thy angel went out and smote 180,500 of them. Even so, destroy thou this host before this day, and that the rest may know that he have spoken blasphemously against thy sanctuary, and the judge of him according to the wickedness." So not only do you have the priests praying to get the Nicanor killed, now you got Judas Maccabees praying to the Most High to kill this dude, right? Verse 43, verse 42. Even so, destroy thou, even, no, I read there, 43. So on the 13th day of the month of Adar, the host joined into battle, but Nicanor's host was discomforted, and he himself was the first to be slain in a battle. Because in battles, it ain't like the president now, he just sit here and press a button and people protect him. No, in these days, the king was the first one into battle, right? So in this battle, Nicanor was the first one to die, right? Verse 44. Now when Nicanor host saw that he was slain, they cast away their weapons and fled. They did it again. They dropped their weapons and dipped, right? Because it's like if the leader died, and all this doesn't mean anything. We fail, right? So they fled. Verse 45. And when they pursued after them a day's journey, so they chased these Edomites for a day. From Azores to Gazaria. They chased them from one city to another, sounding an alarm after them with their trumpets. They terrorizing these people, right? Check this out. Verse 46. Whereupon they came forth out of all the towns of Judea round about and closed them in. Now you got other Israelites that know what's going on. They coming out of their little towns and stuff, and they box these people in. They box them in. This a nation effort, right? They boxed them in, closed them in, so that they turning back upon them that pursued them were all slain with the sword. Not one of them was left. And afterwards they took the spoils and the prey and smote off Nicanor's head in his right hand, which he stretched out so proudly. So they cut off his head and his hand because he stretched out the arm proudly. They took it, right? Which they stretched out proudly and brought them away and hung them towards Jerusalem. For this cause the people rejoiced greatly, and they kept that day to day of greatness. Moreover, they ordained to keep yearly this day, being the 13th day of Adar. Thus the land of Judah was in rest a little while. Right, so that's the battle of Nicanor. And just to be honest, right, we Israelites, and that's why the coon thing don't work, because most of our holy days are surrounded around, actually all of them are surrounded around us destroying heathens or harvest. Either one. You got the harvest feast days, and every other feast day is about us destroying our enemies and Most High delivering us, right? We got Purim, we got this one, we got the Feast of Dedication, we got Passover. That we literally have holy days about the Most High destroying people for us, right? Destroying other nations for us, right? So this is the battle of Nicanor. That was yesterday, right? Now keep in mind, these ain't holy days that you got to keep like Passover. We just observing them, right? This is our culture, this is our tradition, right? We just observing them, right? So that was yesterday. Well, the next day is today, which is Purim, right? So we finna read about that, right? I need you to give me Esther chapter 3, verse 1. Now this Esther, right? She's an Israelite. Now, nobody didn't know she was an Israelite until like the end of this story, which makes it kind of dope, right? But Esther, she married a heathen, right? She was a queen. It's one of the only women you're gonna be seeing called a queen in the Bible. But she was married to a actual heathen man, right? But you would think she, if you read just the part in the Old Testament, you would think she loved him. But you got to read the rest of it, the additions to Esther and the Apocrypha to understand that she hated that heathen man. But that's not the point here today. The point here is what she did for her people. So let's start at Esther chapter 3, verse 1. All right. So this Esther 3 and 1. And after these things did King Assuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes that were with him. So King Assuerus is Esther's husband, right? And he just promoted this heathen dude named Haman. He the second in command. And now Esther is in the Persian and Mede slavery, right? So this is the Persian and Mede slavery. This is the slavery right before we just read. We just read about the Greek slavery. Well, we're reading about our slavery right before that one, because we've really been in 7 slaveries, right? So we're reading about right now, we're reading about our 4th, right? But maybe let's keep going, right? So we promoted this heathen. Verse 2, and all the king's servants that were with that were in the king's gates bowed and reverence Haman, for the king have so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did he give him reverence. So Mordecai didn't bow. Mordecai is an Israelite. Mordecai didn't bow down. You know, we Israelites, we don't bow down, right? We bow down to Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shah. We don't bow down just regular heathen king, right? We don't bow down to Donald Trump, right? Verse 3. Then the king's servants, which were in the king's gate, said unto Mordecai, why transgressest thou the king's commandment? So he said, why you ain't bow down? Why you ain't listen? Now it came to pass that when they spake daily unto him, he had hearkened not unto them, that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai matter would stand. For he had told them that he was a Jew. So they didn't let it go on for a minute. Then they went to go tell Haman, like, hey, Mordecai ain't bowing down to you. Verse 5. And when Haman saw Mordecai bowed not, nor did he reverence, then was Haman full with wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had shown him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Assuerus, even the people of Mordecai. So now Haman's so mad that Mordecai won't bow. He ain't think to just kill Mordecai. He said, you know what? I'm going to kill all the Israelites that's in this kingdom. Verse 7, in the first month, that is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of the king of Assuerus, they cast pur, that is a lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month. In the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, right? Here goes the month of Adar again. And Haman said unto the king, finna drop down to verse 9. Oh, now let's just read this part through. And Haman, verse 8, and Haman said unto King Assuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of the kingdom, and their law is diverse from all people, neither keeping the king's law. Wherefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. So now he finessing the king. He like, hey, these Israelites got a law, and they law ain't praising you. Verse 9, and if it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay tens of thousands of talents of silver to the hands of those that have charge of the business, and to bring it to the king treasury. Hey, he said, nigga, we got 100 bands on their head. Whoever want to do it, right? Verse 10, and the king took his ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, and the Jews' enemy. So now the king don't know what's going on. He just been finessed, right? He done gave him the ring. He basically gave him the power to do it. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given unto thee, and the people also to do with them as it seems good to thee. Then now keep in mind, they finna go slay Israelites, right? The king's wife is Esther. He don't know she's an Israelite yet. So he's just thinking he killing some people that's disobeying him. That's what the heathen king thinking. And the king's verse 12. Let's see here. Verse 12. And there and well, Jordan, what you got going on? Stay in class, young lady. Okay, so we're at verse 12. Verse 12. And when the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king lieutenants. So Haman sitting on the side of the king while they writing it. He putting all the tedious parts in there because he's trying to get Israel killed, right? Um, and to the governors that were over the providence and the rulers of every people of every providence according to the writings thereof, and to every people after their language, the name of the king Asuerus, it was written and sealed with the king's ring. Can you take that off of the verse 13? Okay, and the letters were sent by post. So he sent out the decree to everybody in his kingdom. And the letters were sent by post, and basically the decree was kill Israelites and you get money. And the letters were sent by post to all the king's providences to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young, old, little children, women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, to take the spoils of them for a prey. And a copy of the written, so they set up a day where they was going to get killed, and a copy of the writings of the commands to be given to every providence was published unto all the people, that they should be ready against that day, right? And the copy was ready against that day. Verse 15, and the post went out. Actually, just drop down to verse 17. Let me get my point, because we got to go through multiple chapters. Oh, wrong chapter. Salakia. Yeah, verse 12 is my point. Verse 13. And okay, I read that. Let me get Esther chapter 4, verse 7. Now, right? So we got these heathens, right? The king done got finessed into writing a decree to kill all these Israelites, right? This Esther chapter 4, verse 7. It says, and Mordecai told him of all that had happened to him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king treasuries of the Jews to destroy him. So now Malachi got whiff of it. Verse 8. Also, he gave him the copy of the decree that was given to Shushan to destroy them, to shew it to Esther. So Mordecai like, hey, I'm gonna go show this to Esther, and to declare it unto her, and to charge her that she should go into the king to make supplication for him, and to make requests for him for her people, right? So he finna go show Esther, and Hatch came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Again, Esther spake unto Hatch and gave them commandment unto Mordecai, right? Drop down to 14. All right. Okay, let me get 13. And Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape the king's house more than all the Jews, right? For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time. So Mordecai talking to Esther. He telling her, like, look, you gotta say something. But if you don't say nothing, the Most High still gonna deliver Israel, but you and your household might get destroyed. That's what he's gonna tell her. Verse 14. He's verse 13 and then into 14. Then Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, think not that with thyself that thou shalt escape the king's house more than all the Jews. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at that time, then shall the enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knoweth which thou art come to the king for such a time as this. So he basically said, hey, you probably don't, your household probably don't make it out of this. So it's in your best interest too to go to the king and make supplication for the people. Verse 15. Then Esther Blade them return Mordecai's answer, right? 14 through 17. Give me 16. Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, neither eat nor drink 3 days, day nor night. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. So will I go to the king, which is not according to the law. If I perish, I perish, because you couldn't just go to the king. She had to make an appointment. But she said, forget that. She just finna go. But she fasts first. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Go into the next chapter. Now it came to pass on the third day that Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in the inner court of the king's house over against the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house over against the gate of the house. And it was so that when the king saw Esther, the queen standing in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. And Esther drew near and touched the top of the scepter. And she then said the king to her, what wilt thou, Queen Esther? And what is thy request? It shall be given unto thee half the kingdom. So the king, like, he like, what's good, queen? He like, because she showed up for a request. He like, shoot, I'll give you half of the kingdom, right? Verse 4. And Esther answered, if it seemed good to the king, let the king and Haman come this day to the banquet that I have prepared for him. So she finessing, Eve thinking 10 steps ahead, this chess, not checkers, right? She done set up a banquet for Haman and the king to come to, right? She said, prepare, verse 5. And the king said, cause Haman and the king said, cause Haman to make haste, that he may do as Esther hath said. So the king and Haman came to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And the king said unto Esther at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition? And it shall be granted unto thee. And what is thy request? Even half of the kingdom shall be performed. And then answered Esther and said, my petition and my request is, I have found favor in the sight of the king. And if it please the king to grant my petition and to perform my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I should prepare for them. So she basically called them to have the drink. And then she said, hey, I got a banquet prepared for y'all. Performed at my request, let the king and Haman come to the banquet that I should prepare for them, and I will do tomorrow as the king have said. And when Haman went forth, now Haman don't know she an Israelite, right? And when Haman, verse 9, and when Haman went forth that day joyful with a glad heart, but when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, that he stood not up, nor moved for him, he was full of indignation against Mordecai. So he had hate, he's full of hate. Nevertheless, Haman refrained himself, and when he came home, he sent and called his friends and Zeresh, his wife. So Haman, the heathen, called his wife, called his homeboys, and Haman told them, verse 11, and Haman told them the glory of his riches and the multitude of his children and all the things wherein the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the princes and the servants of the kings. So Haman called his homeboys and his wife, like, yeah, I'm the second in command in the kingdom, right? Verse 12, Haman said, moreover, yea, Esther, the queen, did not let no man come in with the king into the banquet that she had prepared by myself. On the tomorrow, I am invited also with her, the king. So he think he's special. He don't know it's a whole setup against him, but he think he's special. He's like, yeah, I'm second in command. I'm even invited to a thing only me and the king can come, right? And when he came, and when no, yeah, 13, the water baby. 13. Yet all this availeth me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai, the Jew, sitting at the king's gate. So he like, yeah, I'm second in command, everything good, but Mordecai, this Negro won't bow. This nigga got a problem, right? Verse 14. And then says Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends unto him, let a gallows be made of 50 cubits high, and tomorrow speak thou to the king that Mordecai can be hanged therein. Then go thou in merrily with the king unto the banquet, and this thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. So he built a thing to hang Mordecai on. And he said, hey, I'm gonna hang Mordecai, then I'm gonna go to the dinner, and that's a good idea, right? Boom. 6. Actually, give me Esther chapter 8, verse 1. Hold on, no, go back. Salakia. Give me 6. On that night could not the king sleep. Now, this is when everything finna switch, right? So this is the night before everything finna take place. On that night, could not the king sleep, and he had commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles that they may be read before him. So he couldn't sleep. He said, hey, bring the records of the Israelites and read them before me. And it had been found written that Mordecai had told of Bethania and Theresh, 2 of the king chamberlains, and the keepers of the door, who sought to lay hands on King Cyrus, right? So basically, he saved the king life, right? He helped the chamberlains, the doorkeepers, right? That keep the king safe. Verse 3, and the king said, what honor and dignity have been done to Mordecai for this? He said, when did we honor Mordecai for this? We didn't honor Mordecai for this, right? Boom. Then said the king's servants and ministered unto him, there is nothing done for him. Verse 4, and the king said, now keep in mind, the second in command in the country is planning to hang Mordecai tomorrow. The king done said, hey, Mordecai need to be honored. The day before, he couldn't sleep, right? Mordecai needs to be honored, right? Verse 3, and the king said, verse 4, and the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come into the outward court of the king's house. So he like, who outside? Hey, tell Haman to come here to speak unto the king to hang. But Haman was out there trying to speak to the king to hang Mordecai. So Haman out there finna ask to hang Mordecai. But then the king like, hey, tell Haman to come here. I need to ask him something, right? And the king said, who is in the court? Now Haman was come to the outer court of the king's house to speak unto the king to hang Mordecai in the gallows that he had prepared for him. And the king's servant said unto him, behold, Haman is standing in the court. And the king said, let him come in. And Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor? So the king like, hey, Haman, what if I wanted to honor somebody? Now Haman dumb, he think it's him, right? He said, what shall be done unto the man whom the king delighted to honor? Now Haman thought in his heart, to whom should the king delight to honor more than himself? Verse 7. And Haman answered the king, for the honor, for the man whom the king delighted to honor, let the royal apparel be brought, which the king uses to wear. He said, hey, treat him like a king. Let him wear the king clothes. And the horse that the king rideth upon, and a crown royal shall be set upon his head. He thinking he's talking about him. He like, yeah, let put him on a king clothes, let him on a king horse, put the crown up on his head, right? Because he want to be king. Verse 10, and the king said unto Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse that thou hast. I skipped 9. Salakia. And let the apparel and the horse be delivered into the hand of the king's most noble prince, that they may array the man work withal, whom the king delighteth and honor, bring him on horseback through the street of the city and proclaim him. Thus shall be done to the man whom the king delighted to honor. Then the king said unto Haman, make haste and take the apparel and the horse and as thou hast said, and do even so to Mordecai the Jew. Now, Haman looking stupid, right? That sitteth in the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. He said, everything that you said, do it to Mordecai. Then took Mordecai the apparel and the horse and arrayed Mordecai and brought him on horseback through the streets of the city and proclaimed there before him, thus shall it be done unto the man whom the king delighteth to honor. And Mordecai came again to the king's gate, but Haman hasted to the house mourning. So now Haman running back to his house crying and having his head covered, right? And Haman told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had befallen him. And then said his wise man and Zeresh his wife unto him, if Mordecai be of the seed of the Jews, before whom thou hast begun to fall, thou shalt not prevail against him, but shalt surely fall before him. He said, if Mordecai Jew, and he got favor with the king, how you gonna kill him and all his people? You gonna fail what you're trying to do. And while they were verse 14, and while they were talking with him, came the king's chamberlains in haste to bring Haman to the banquet that Esther had prepared. While all this was happening, it's time to get that banquet that Esther done prepared. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen. And the king said again to Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, what is thy petition, Queen Esther? He like, what you want? It shall be granted to thee. What is thy request? What is thy request? And it shall be performed, even half of the kingdom. He like, I give you half of this. What you want? And Esther, the queen, answered and said, if I found favor in thy sight, O king, if it please the king, let my life be given me as a petition and my people and for my request. She said, hey, I want to die in the place of my people. For we are sold that I and my people to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. And if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I held my tongue, although the enemy could not contravail the king's damage. Then King Ahasuerus answered and said unto that, because this is when Esther's saying she an Israelite, right? Then the king Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he? Like, who is this dude that's trying to kill y'all or whatever, right? Who is he? Where is he? That doeth presume in his heart to do so. And Esther said, the adversary and the enemy is this wicked man Haman. Then Haman was afraid before the king and the queen. And the king arose from the banquet of wine in his wrath and went to the palace garden. So the king got up mad. He dipped out, right? Because his wife and his first in command beefing, right? Verse 7, and the king arose from the banquet of wine in his wrath and went to the palace in the garden, the palace garden. And Haman stood up to make requests for his life to Esther the queen. Now Haman begging the queen, right? For he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. So the king on Esther's side. Then the king returned out of the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, and Haman was falling up on the bed wherein Esther was. And he said, and said the king, will he force the queen also before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harabah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai. Now the chamberlain, we keep in mind these chamberlains, Mordecai done helped. Chamberlain came in, hey, he built a little hanging platform for Mordecai. We should hang him on that one. The one he built for Mordecai, he get hung on, right? Then said the king, boom, boom. Verse 9 again. And Harabah, one of the chamberlains, said before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who has spoken good for the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him thereon. So they hang Haman in the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king wrath pacified. Then the king cool again, right? Next chapter. 8, 1 through 6. Okay. So on Salakia, 1 second. Esther 8 and 1. And on that day did the king of Assyria give the house of Haman. Now check out what's gonna happen. And this is why this is a holy day. And that day the king of Assyria gave the house of Haman, the Jews' enemies, gave the house of Haman, the Jews' enemies, to Esther the queen. So now Haman's house is Esther's. And Mordecai came before the king, and Esther had told what he was unto her. So Esther, like, yeah, this my fellow brother, he an Israelite. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears, and put away the mischief of tears, to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Now she fell at his feet. She like, it's a decree out there that's going to come up in a couple of days that you done told everybody to kill Israelites, right? And then the king held out the golden scepter. Was I at verse 7? Scroll back up. 4, Salaki, it's a record thing right there. I can't see. Then the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther, like that means like acceptance. So Esther arose and stood before the king. So then and said, if it please the king, if I have found favor in thy sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleased in his eyes, let it be written in reverse the letter devised by Haman to the son of Hamadiah the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews which are in the king's providence. She said, do a uno reverse. She said, reverse the letter. She said, the things say all these people can kill Israelites. Write it in reverse. Say the Israelites can kill them. Right? Verse 6. For now I can endure to see the evil that shall come upon my people. How can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Then the king of Assyria said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hung upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Write ye also for the Jews, as it liketh you, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For it is for the writing which is written in the king's name, sealed with the king's ring, no man may reverse. Then where the king's scribes called at the time, on the 3rd month, which is the month of Savine, in the 3rd and 20th day thereof. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded. So last decree, Haman was over there making all the points, right? Stipulations in the decree. This time Mordecai doing it, right? And Mordecai commanded unto the Jews and to the lieutenants and the deputies and the rulers of the province, which are from India to Ethiopia. That's how far the Greek Empire stretched. It went from India over there by Asia all the way into Africa. And 120 and 70 providences, and to every providence according to the writings thereof, and unto every people after their language, and to the Jews according to the writings, according to the language. And he wrote to King Assyrius, and he wrote in the King Assyrius' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent the letters by post on horseback, and riders and mules and camels, and young dormitories. I don't know what that is. Verse 11, wherefore the king granted the Jews which were in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy and to slay and to cause to perish all of the powers of the people and provinces that would assassinate them, both little ones and women, and take the spoils of them for prey. So now we just got the green light to whack people that our enemies that's against us. Upon one day, all of the providences of King Assyrius, namely upon the 30th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, right? The 12th month, that's where we at, because y'all know next month is Passover, right? So we in the 12th month. The copy of the writing of the commandment was given into every province, was published into all the people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves of the enemy. So now the decree went out, That is a reverse uno. Now they get to kill and destroy the people that was finna destroy them. So the posts that rode upon the mules and the camels went out, being hastened to the and pressed by the king's commandment. And the decree was given at Shushan at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, with great crown of gold, and with the garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. And the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. And every province and every city, whatsoever the king commandment and the decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness and feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, and fear fell upon them. If you look at this word became Jews, is not the word for, actually, let's look at that word, this verse in Hebrew, because a lot of people go here try to say you could become an Israelite. So let's look up this. Go to the blue letter. I need Esther 8 and 8. But make a long story short, we got to kill the people, and then everybody got so afraid. We had people so afraid that nobody didn't tell them to start keeping the commandments. They just start following our culture, right? It don't mean that they're gonna be saved. Whoa. Or change the data storage. Time consuming. Please be patient. Could take a minute, a while. Okay, let me just. Okay, say you're done. I need Malachi 8 last verse. Yeah, I know it's let's see. But make a long story short, you see how that played out, right? He was the heathen, and he only hated Mordecai, but his hate for Israel, right? And basically both stories are the same. You got these people that hate Israelites, and they're planning to kill Israelites, right? But then who gets the victory in the end, right? Because if we're following the Most High and we doing what we supposed to do, yeah. Let me get that verse. Then no other nation can't come against us, right? Scroll down. So it said in every province and every city wheresoever commanded the kings and his decree came, joy and gladness of the Jews, and fear fell upon them. Let me see how this verse is written. Let me see what word I need to look up. Oh, became Jews. I need that word. Go down. Go up. No, not a fear of Jews. That's Yehuda. Became Jews. That word. That's not the word for Jew. Go back out one more time and let me prove this. Then let's get the word. This is not the word for Jew. Go back out to the. Go back. Yeah. See, look. You see the word Jew. Yehuda is H3064. Right. That's the word for Jew. That's the word for Jew throughout the whole Bible, throughout the whole Old Testament. Now go up to that word became Jew. You see how it's not the same number? It's H3054. It's not the same word. Click that word. Right? It means to become a Jew, become Judaized. It's only used in the Bible one time. It's the only time this word is ever used in the Bible. Right? And it means to become basically somebody that follows our culture. Judaized, right? Fake Jews are Judaized. That doesn't mean you're an Israelite. Just wanted to get that out the way. Go back. So basically it says they got so scared, they started following our culture, right? Now go back to the verse. Okay, give me 9. I hear my last 2 verses. I'm finna end it right here. I need Esther chapter 9, verse 1 and 2. It says, Esther 9 and 1. Now in the 12th month, right? We in the 12th month on the Israelite calendar, right? Passover is in a month, right? We're in the 12th month. Now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put into execution, on the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned into the contrary, and the Jews had rule over them, and they hated them, over them that hated them. Verse 2, and the Jews gathered themselves together in the cities throughout all the provinces, and the king of Assuerus to lay hands on such as sought to hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fears fell upon all the people. That's why I'm gonna end it there, right? So boom, we got this sister, right? powerful sister, right? She cared for her people so much so she was willing to give up herself to save all these Israelites, right? But the Most High was working with them, and we prevail, right? It's just and I encourage everybody to read the book of Esther. It's how many chapters in Esther? Go back. I think it's 14 and stop at like 14 and 2. Oh, 10. 10 and 2, 10 and 4, click 10. 10 and 3. And when you go to the Apocrypha, it picks up on the fourth verse, right? So I encourage everybody to read the book of Esther. Powerful sister, cared about her people, obviously. You got a holy day that she spearheaded, right? Additions to Esther, click on 10. Or that 4. See that? And it pick right up, right? So yeah, I encourage everybody to read the book of Esther. But today's lesson was on the battle of Nicanor, right? An Edomite heathen that we destroyed, right? And we had commemorate a holy day. Now, again, these holy days are not mandatory, but we rehearsing the righteous acts, and like this our culture. Why not? Right? So that's the spirit we in. I observe every holy day I can, right? God willing, right? And that's how I'm gonna play the game. But these holy days are basically us defeating our enemies. So the whole inclusive ideology of everybody being saved doesn't work with the actual Bible, because we have holy days based on heathens being destroyed for our sakes by our God, right? And these are another 2 or more examples. Yesterday was the day of Nicanor. Today is the day of Purim. Anybody observing it, is no particular way to observe it, you know what I'm saying, that we can like just keep it in your mind, you know what I'm saying, and treat it like you would treat another holy day. You dig what I'm saying? But yesterday was a holy day, today a holy day. Next month, right on the 14th day of the even, we got Passover, right? We all know Passover is not one of these holy days that's not mandatory. Passover is absolutely mandatory, right? You can't miss it. Now, we do got makeup Passovers, but if you're an Israelite and you following these law, statutes, commandments, you better make it your business to celebrate Passover some way, how, shape, or form. I don't care if you gotta bake the lamb. You gotta celebrate that holy day. So these ain't mandatory, but the next one is, right? And with that, I want to give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, and I do so in the name of Yahweh Shai. Kwam Yasharallah.
Kwam Yashala.
Kwam Yashala.
Kwam Yashala.
Yeah, Auntie, I'm gonna send you a chronology.
Kwam Yasharala.
Can y'all hear me?
We can now.
Yeah.
All praises to the Most High. All
praise to the Most High. Yeah, Auntie, I'm gonna send you a chronological